Pretty often parents ask me questions about what they can get for their students to help them better prepare them for the technological world and workforce that we live in and that they'll be entering. One of the largest suggestions that I have is getting them a Raspberry Pi and talking to them about the great things that they can do with it and hopefully motivating them to learn with it. So this video is going to tell you all about the Raspberry Pi and the things that I use it for. Check it out. All right, so this is the Raspberry Pi. Now this is the Raspberry Pi 4. There's a Raspberry Pi 3 and 3B, and there are a bunch of different models of it. There's also the Raspberry Pi Zero. Now, you can look on their website for which ones are the best for your purposes. I buy the Zero because it's small when I want to use it on something that doesn't have a lot of space or I don't need a lot of processing speed. The Raspberry Pi 4 works for a lot of other really cool things. There's a bunch of cool cases you can get for both of them. Let me get into it. So, what is the Raspberry Pi? According to raspberrypi.org, which is the main website, it is your tiny dual display, that's the new one, the Raspberry Pi 4, desktop computer and robot brains, smart home hub, media center, networked AI core, factory controller, and much more. So the Raspberry Pi allows you to do a lot of really cool things with it. What do I use my Raspberry Pi for? First of all, I use it for a retro game emulator. So I can play Super Nintendo. I have a Raspberry Pi right here, and I bought some Super Nintendo controllers off of Amazon. I think I got both of them for $13 shipped. And I've installed a retro gaming operating system on here where I'm able to play a bunch of games from Super Nintendo, Atari, Sega Genesis, and a bunch more. The new Raspberry Pi 4, I believe, even better supports Nintendo 64 games as well. So you can get a lot of really, there's Game Boy on there, Game Boy Advance, 40 gaming systems on the one that I use. I'll make a separate video on that, setting it up, installing it, and using it. Really, really cool option. I use one as a media center. So I actually use the same exact one, and I can press the X button while it's booting up, and it actually boots into Kodi Media Center. And what it does is it accesses all my movies that I have saved on a hard drive upstairs, and we can watch the movies on our TV down in the basement. So it's a really nice thing to do that. I can control lights, so I'm able to control my garage lights anywhere in the world through my Raspberry Pi by programming it a little bit and connecting it to GPIO pins. And let me show you what that is. So if we're looking at the Raspberry Pi 4, you'll notice that these little pins are sticking up out of it. These are the GPIO pins, and you can connect wires to them and then control them through the computer. I have an app on my phone where I say, turn on GPIO pin number 13. And I turn it on, and it turns the lights on in my garage. It's really, really cool. You can get a little bit more advanced and even program it to do it on its own, depending on the time of day or depending on how much sunlight there is. Really, really cool options. I also use it for web browsing. I've connected a Raspberry Pi. This is a kit, and you put it together. There's a Raspberry Pi inside of this. This is a touch screen. I'd turn it on, but it's hard to see on the screen. I have a camera connected to it. It's a touch screen Raspberry Pi. On the back of it, you'll see a little chip. This is actually called a Sense Hat. It has a bunch of sensors. It has a miniature joystick. It has a gyroscope, so it knows which way's up and down and left and right. Temperature sensors, humidity sensors, air pressure sensors, I believe, and an LED array, so I can actually program it to say certain things across the LEDs. So I can read those sensors and then program it to do certain things. So I can say, hey, if the humidity is too high, do this. So maybe turn on a fan or open a window or anything like that. It's really, really cool. If you saw my Arduino video, this sort of builds off the basis of knowledge that you get from the Arduino, and then you can build on it more with the Raspberry Pi. So really, really nice option. You can also buy a bunch of cool different cases for it. This is one of my favorite cases. It's just so slim and nice and compact. And I use this for for a lot of prototyping. So if I'm designing a new circuit that I want to use, maybe I want to make a light come on if the mail carrier has delivered some mail. Well, I can do that, and I can prototype it using this and then put it on a chip permanently. You can learn programming languages. There's a free Minecraft version in it that you can start. You can have a little bit more features. You can use Scratch. If you've learned Scratch through my videos, you can actually use Scratch on the Raspberry Pi to control things on the GPIO output. I use another one and that one's still plugged in, as a web server. So you can actually enter a certain IP address or a website address, and you're able to access a website that's hosted on my Raspberry Pi at my house. I have a chat server, so I can actually talk with friends, and it doesn't go to anyone else other than my Raspberry Pi upstairs. I have a VoIP server, so if the internet goes down or anything, I can actually connect to my neighbors through Wi-Fi, and we can actually have voice over internet protocol. So normal phone conversations just through a wireless router and a Raspberry Pi. There's a lot of cool options. That one's called Freedom Box, and I will make a separate video on that as well. So lots of really cool things. I'm going to make some more videos on installing operating systems, setting up the retro game emulator, maybe setting up Freedom Box, which does all those servers. But before I end this video, I want to show you their website. So their website, it's just raspberrypi.org, and they have a bunch of information. You can click find out more and learn about, you can see how people are using them in educational settings. You can see what projects people have built with them. A lot of really, really cool things. Learning how to program with Python, build a robot. So you can click on this, and it has a lot of directions on how you can build things. Someone made this robot. Really, really cool stuff. There is also, under Raspberry Pi, you can just go to downloads, and this is the different operating systems that they support. And so you can look at those, sort of see, hey, do I want to build a weather station? Do I want to make just a media center? This would be a really good media center one. I believe that's another media center. There's Ubuntu, which is a Linux operating system. This does run off of Linux, most of them. There used to be a Windows one. I'm not sure exactly if that was Linux or not. I doubt it was. There is Raspbian, which is their normal operating system. Great way to learn Linux and command line and all that stuff. If you want to learn command line better, check out some of my videos on computer programming. Raspberry Pi is a great place to start. So check out my playlist, and then check out my videos when they come out, showing you how to make the retro gaming system and a lot of the other things like the media center. And yeah, so check it out. Check out my playlist, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn a lot. Go on Amazon. I think that's one of the best spots. You can click on products. You can click on, I'd suggest just the Raspberry Pi 4, and you can click buy now. And they do have these official places to buy it from. I've purchased from CanaKit. I have and Adafruit. Micro Center I may have as well. I've owned some Vilros made things, but if you click on those, you'll see where they're for sale. So you can buy the board only for $35, the Pi 4 2 gigabit basic kit for $60. If you buy just the board, you will need to buy some additional things. So maybe that's something I should talk about. You do need a power supply. So you need something that gives out power. That will not come if you just buy the board. You can buy a case. I like having a case. These are heat sinks. They're supposed to keep it cooler. I have no idea if that actually works. You do need a micro SD card. You need some way to connect it to something. So maybe an HDMI cord to connect it to your TV. You can access these remotely through another computer without a display, but while you're learning, it's a lot easier to have that HDMI and plug it into your TV. So if you just buy the board, do know you will at the very least need a power supply and an SD card. I suggest buying one of these kits that has everything. Okay? Awesome. Well, get out there and learn. Have a nice day. Bye.